Mr. President, I pose the following question to my fellow senators, something I doubt if there's much disagreement on, but time is moving on. We need to take some action shortly. So this question: if a deadly poison was killing thousands of Americans each year, what would you do? Would you work to find the solution to prevent these deaths? Or would you choose to be complacent, reactive, and allow fellow citizens to die? If all levels of law enforcement were pleading for action to prevent future fatalities, would you heed their warning? The last question: or would you roll the dice with the lives that are on the line? I know I would seek to be very proactive. I'm here today to call attention to the dire need for Congress to schedule fentanyl-related substances before it's too late. Without hyperbole or theatrics, such action could save the lives of thousands of Americans. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is about 30 times more potent than heroin. While dangerous and deadly, fentanyl also has some medically recognized qualities, often for pain management. However, fentanyl abuse has become more common and more dangerous in recent years because of the increase in fentanyl analogs. These analogs are chemically similar to fentanyl, but many are very much more powerful and, of course, deadly. Much of the illicitly manufactured fentanyl that is responsible for American overdose and the deaths connected with it originate in China. Unfortunately, these deadly drugs are not permanently controlled in the United States. As such, fentanyl analogs aren't on the same footing as other dangerous drugs like heroin, LSD, ecstasy, or cocaine. The sad part is the drug dealers know all of this. They can skirt the law by easily manipulating the structure of fentanyl so that it isn't technically covered by existing law. But that doesn't make it any less potent and dangerous. And we all know the results are lethal. How lethal? Well, the Center for Disease Control states that more than 36,000 people died from overdoses involving synthetic opioids, like fentanyl, and that was in 2019. Nearly 50,000 overdose deaths are projected for 2020. As is, the law can't keep up then with the rapidly evolving drug trends. When the chemists work on these drugs and change them just a little bit to get around the law, the Attorney General can outlaw new variations of a drug on an ad hoc basis. But you know what? This process can take years. By the time an analog is added to the schedule, you know what? The drug traffickers are already out with one or more other variations that don't violate that law. Simply put, the law can't keep up with the rapid pace of illicit drug producers and traffickers. This is particularly problematic for fentanyl analog enforcement. How can we address this seemingly endless cycle? how can we ensure that those suffering from substance use disorders aren't killed at the hands of greedy drug dealers? The answer is to stop fentanyl analogs from being available in the very first place. We must keep it out of our country and hence then being peddled by our criminals. On October the 6th, 2018, the Drug Enforcement Administration published a temporary order scheduling and placing all fentanyl-related substances on Schedule 1. Congress subsequently extended this authority until May 6 this year, just around the corner. So, we have 23 days until this authority expires. Congress must act to extend this scheduling order. If we do not, we will face a surge of rapidly emerging fentanyl drugs, something where the chemists and the criminals will be ahead of anything that the Justice Department does. The Justice Department, then, has made clear that this class-wide scheduling order has made a big difference in Chinese fentanyl entering our country. China has agreed to match U.S. policy targeting synthetic fentanyl. But if we lose the authority to rapidly detect and outlaw fentanyl analogs, we lose any footing that we have with the Chinese government in preventing fentanyl from entering our country. This scheduling order saves lives because China reciprocates. China's motive in scheduling fentanyl analogs isn't necessarily altruistic. It's because the U.S. is doing it. So if we stop, China stops. And if that happens, fentanyl analogs will surely flood our communities. We can prevent this, so we must prevent it. With the ongoing increase in overdose deaths, we must continue to support efforts to curb fentanyl abuse. This means we must extend the class-wide scheduling order that otherwise expires May the 6th, 23 days away. Now this, I think, pretty sure isn't a political or partisan issue. Senators from both sides of the aisle support efforts to schedule fentanyl substances. Members of the Biden administration have also indicated that addressing fentanyl is urgent. In fact, during his confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Attorney General Garland stated that the constantly evolving nature of fentanyl analogs is, and I want to quote the new Attorney General, a problem both for detection as well as in enforcement, and that he is in favor of doing something either by scheduling or legislation to proactively address the problem of fentanyl-related substances. Likewise, both law enforcement and substance abuse prevention groups believe Congress must act in scheduling fentanyl. It's up to Congress to pass legislation to extend the fentanyl scheduling order. So I urge all my colleagues to join me and a lot of other Republican and Democrats in the fight against fentanyl. In the midst of an opioid epidemic, a polydrug crisis, a COVID-19 pandemic, how can we allow for any additional death and destruction? The clock is ticking. We're closing in on a deadline of May 6th. I yield the floor.